So cool. YouTube is back. Now we've got it. We started YouTube stream part 2. And if you're watching on X and you're watching on Rumble, that didn't happen to you because you're a sensible person. I don't know. I'm so frustrated with YouTube. I keep looking at my videos. I'm like, how is it possible that they're able to bring it down even further? Like they were already bringing it to an unconscionable, inhuman level of just, they're just, it's wick. I feel like the Joker myself, really, when I use YouTube, because they hate you so much. All right, everybody, if you were watching on hey, Blackout stream, it's on new YouTube part Deux.
So
I don't know. So
YouTube puts all these ads on it now, and I see the complaints in the comments. I know that if you have a membership, you don't have to deal with that, right? So like, does that mean like if you just subscribe to your channel, Andreas, or what? Like if you subscribe to your channel, do you still get the ads?
So there's no ads if you're subscribed to my channel.
Okay.
No, yeah. If you're a member of the channel, there's no ads on the video.
Right. And then YouTube charges $14 a month to just get rid of ads or whatever, which is funny because, like for Twitter, it's $8 a month for a blue check, which is, allows me to share up to 4-hour videos for streaming, which is like, it's working really well as a streaming service with that element, like that's, people complain about the $8 and I can understand it, but it's like YouTube's charging 14.
Yeah, it's definitely better than other things.
I don't get censored when I share my content to X, yet I do if I do it on YouTube, and YouTube is charging me. It's like it feels kind of twisted in that way,
Yeah, I just hate Twitter for paywalling a character count. I mean, who would want to limit my character? So frustrating.
Is that a thing? Like if you're not a premium X, you have only 280.
Yeah. It's caused me to become a much more succinct writer. And I had to edit the second space after a period, which I'm resolute on.
It's been over 2 years of my life. I wrote on a board and was silent, and that practice, like one of the unexpected benefits of it is like I don't always do this. I think I used to be better at it, but just consolidating, like to get to the point sometimes, especially if you're having like a debate with somebody, is like kind of like zeroing in, like what is it exactly that I want to say? You got a little bored. You're like, okay, I only got this much room. So it's like kind of like Twitter in real life. If I didn't have a blue check.
Yeah, regarding YouTube copyright strikes, I mean, for a live stream, it's a whole different thing. You're in a whole different world I've never played with. But for videos, you just escalate it to the top thing. If you're actually fair use and you go to the top, they back down every time, pretty much. Just a tip out there for people trying to do actual fair use stuff where you're using little clips.
What'll happen is if you allow for advertising, they'll actually get off your back.
For the most part.
If you don't allow for the advertising, that's when they'll take your stuff down for copyright more often. Not that they won't otherwise, but it's better. Yeah. So I don't know.
So do you want to give like just a succinct reminder to me of what happened? What the sync film you were showing?
True, because you know what? We started the thing over again, so you might as well just like recap it for the beginning of part 2. So basically, like I'll just quickly say he made a video, and you can explain this deeper, but he made a video that explains why the Joker sucking is actually a good thing, and the whole point is it's awesome that they made it that way, which we all kind of, I mean, like we knew this. I knew a lot of people were upset at the Joker for not being what they wanted. I'm like, yeah, but like that's me thinks this is the point. No, like that. Even then, without having the context, it was clear that they did this on purpose. They spent all this time and money and made this musical that was like a terrible musical kind of, because it didn't have, I mean, even the musical quality of it, the dancing quality of it was about people who like musicals but shouldn't really sing or dance. The music wasn't done. I mean, it's Lady Gaga. There's no reason why Lady Gaga shouldn't have auto-tune and the music behind her. There should be big bands singing and all this stuff. But it was this really kind of small, intimate. It was an intimate kind of musical in a lot of ways. And that's just the sequel. The first one was already weird enough, but a lot of people liked it because it was just at that perfect time where people were sick of comic book movies. Will Morgan, just last thing I want to say before you actually explain what's really going on, David. Will Morgan had said this earlier, something else you're not hitting on. Quentin Tarantino has talked about all it would take is 4 failed superhero movies to capsize the superhero industry in the same way that musicals were inched out after 4 fails, right? And I think that's the thing. People made superhero movies because they made money off of superheroes, and then they made money off superhero movies, and they kept going. Same thing with musicals. Musicals tested well. People liked musicals. They made a few that were flops. That was the end of music. It was like Grease, and then after Grease, you have the Bee Gees, Sgt. Pepper's musical, and a couple of things like that. Basically, destroyed the musical industry. Was it musicals' fault? Not necessarily, right? Was it Daredevil's fault? Not necessarily.
Can you pinpoint the 4 major superhero failures that like tanked the industry?
No, it's something that's in the works. So that's like what Todd Phillips is trying to kind of initiate, is like it is like Quentin Tarantino says about the first one. He's like, it's subversion on a mass scale. The same thing that he said about, well, it was actually Avery, I guess. It was he had written the thing in the film Sleep With Me where he's talking about Top Gun as a gay allegory, where he's saying he's talking about subversion on a mass scale, which I believe is why Lady Gaga did the soundtrack song for the new Top Gun, is actually related to what Quentin Tarantino had said. Like that, I think, was her interest in it in the first place, or her producer's interest, who maybe directed her in that way. But like, you know, there's a sacrifice that's Todd Phillips is like basically making a film, first of all, with Joker, where he's incorporating the principles of the Golden Bough, where you're killing the thing and replacing the thing with something else. And so and you look at the trajectory of filmmaking and what was cinema, and kind of wanting to bring it back to this other thing. Like, I think he really resonated with Martin Scorsese's take on superhero movies. And so he's making a super villain origin story, but in that origin story, he's like destroying the whole franchise in a like strategic way, you know, like it's literally an FU to the film industry, right?
I don't
so, yeah.
Well, I can believe that. Has anyone seen Todd Phillips' Fish documentary?
No, okay, on the band Fish?
Yes, the band Fish. It's called Bittersweet Motel, and basically he wasn't a fan of the band at all, but they liked his movies, so they hired him and they gave him carte blanche. They're like, you're going to follow us on tour and you can do whatever you want with it. And that's why he agreed to make the movie. And so he put some uncomfortable stuff in that movie. Like, it is a bizarre movie that like fans had to wrestle with. Like, they've got the band going into a gun shop and playing with guns and stuff, and their hippie fans were like, what is going on? It's really, really interesting to watch, actually. So in a way, he kind of did that with like sort of the veneer of what a hippie jam band was, right? Because those guys weren't necessarily hippies. They were just nerds, you know, doing their thing.
Well, they have a story that they have multiple stories. Like there's like how do you say it? There's like a narrative that happens at Fish shows sometimes where they like, I think it's almost like an opera type of deal.
You're talking about Gamehenge? Yeah, yeah. It was like the thesis for Trey Anastasio's like college project. And so you can find his like demo of it, which is, it's like a story, but it's a whole fantasy story where someone very, very stereotypical of entering another world, and he becomes the hero. He has to find the helping friendly book, and there's this whole mythology, and then they have other songs that relate to it that are like tangential to this like narrative. And so occasionally, I think we did it once in like the past decade or something like that, where they'll do a whole set that is Gamehenge, but for the most part, they almost never. And every time they do it, by the way, it's different. Like, it'll have a different mix of songs because they've got this.
Of course it does. That's the nature of the jam band thing. I mean, that's started with the Grateful Dead doing that, where you want that kind of like, oh, they're doing it that way, so all the real heads are like, you know.
Well, I mean, to say it started with Grateful Dead is like Frank Zappa was doing some pretty wild stuff before the Dead.
So jazz bands. So I'm just saying that phenomenon where people go like, what? Yeah,
right. I know what you're saying.
And they're never going to do the songs the same way that they did before. And the places where they change, if you're really following it, are going to be like exciting to the people who are, are into that band. You know, yeah.
But I mean, Zappa was doing that with like band leader. He had his own like hand signals for the band. So he was creating whole compositions where they'd have learned a certain chart, and he'd throw up a sign. It's like, no, you're playing it in 5/4 now. You know, so he was doing, I think, more, well, for sure, more revolutionary things than the Dead. As much as I like the Dead, by the way.
Yeah, Zappa's incredible, obviously, you know, but you can go back further and just imagine like any band that had to play the same music over and over again for years and years and years. Compare that to bands now who hate it. They don't want to just stand there and like play a record that they lip sync to. They get sick of that. Every band does. So in the old days, it was always about how you could combine new things. Louisiana swing bands, right, would do this as well. And I think that's kind of like the venue into jazz out of orchestral music, because you have to be kind of autistic to want to play the same music and like dead of ego. To be an instrumentalist in an orchestra, you have to be dead of ego so that you can just play what's written. And that's not the way. Well, a lot of musicians,
there are some big egos in the classical world, some big egos. But I know what you mean. It's bizarre from a more creative standpoint. But then the creativity gets put into the exact intonation of every note, right? And a real good classical musician, it's about the feeling that they're feeling while they're playing this robotic thing. But you bring up an interesting point, which I think would relate back, although I haven't seen your film, David, that you were showing earlier, which is like the mythology around bands who hated their most famous song, about how much they start to resent the fact that they have to play this song every time. And it's almost like killing their own legacy, right?
Which is actually kind of relatable to this, what I'm kind of getting at with the video in a way, because it's like, why are you doing what you're doing? It's like in the musical bandwagon, they have this like extreme compromise that they make, where it's like the whole premise of they're making a different musical because of the audience's reaction to this guy's vision. Like the truth is that if they had just stuck with it, maybe eventually the audience would catch on, maybe years later. You know what I mean? Like it's just things will be ahead of their time. So it's kind of Kubrickian in that way too, where it's like, you know, you like there's elements that people think that they're going to see a movie that's about one thing, and then enough time goes by, enough processing goes over it, and they realize that there was something else going on. Like anything that's revolutionary in the art world kind of generally has that, right? Like where there's an initial reaction. It's kind of like Schopenhauer's 3 stages of truth, where at first it's ridiculed and then it's opposed, often violently, until it's accepted as self-evident and just becomes integrated into the culture. And so like this would be an example of that. But I think that he chose to go with like Lady Gaga, like for a variety of reasons. One of them is that I don't know, my critique of Lady Gaga is that like with, I don't know about her most recent album. I mean, I did listen to it, but I don't find an example of this. But generally speaking, throughout Lady Gaga's music career, there's been 1 or 2 songs on each album that's actually a good song. You know, like I would say with the Fame Monster, it was the song Speechless. Like Speechless is an excellent song. With what was it? The Venus one, Art Pop. There was like one song on there, Dope. It's a good song. Every time she, like, in my opinion, this is, you know, my assessment, like what I see that's best from her is actually when she's doing more of this crooning thing. Like she's like almost like she's like a female crooner, and that's like where her strength is. But the industry has her as this kind of like, you know, just you're going to be a pop musician, and that's not really what she's best at. Like if you listen to the way that she sings, it's kind of unusual, and it actually almost is like the female equivalent of like a Frank Sinatra or something like that.
Well, another interesting thing that syncs with just us talking right now is that Lady Gaga actually bought the Zappa house. So for about a decade, she owned Frank Zappa's house, which he had built this whole music studio in. And the thing that I respect,
the toilet with a tube that goes down to the television set.
No, that's
somebody else. Okay.
Yeah, I think it was just a student, like whatever. But what I really respect about her is she recorded in there, and I can't remember what album it was, but she actually recorded in the Utility Muffin Research Kitchen, which is what he named it. And I thought that was pretty neat because that was a bit of incredible history that left that family there. That
Right. I mean, the symbolism of Gaga, like why she's called Lady Gaga, that it's said that that wasn't something she came up with, but her producer. And the idea was Radio Gaga from Queen. If you watch the music video for Radio Gaga, it's all Metropolis footage with Queen inserted into it. And so the whole thing with like the Tower of Babel, no one can understand each other's speech. It's like goo goo gaga, right? So it's like that's like the meaning of the song that they're communicating. It's like somebody saying something, but they're not hearing it on the other side. And so in Metropolis, like the whole premise of it is that you have the replicant takes the place of the high priestess. So she is one thing, and then the industry has basically made a robot out of her. You know, the term robot is actually derived from a play from the early 1900s that if you watch the show Dollhouse, it's the name of the company that's doing the programming of these, you know, assassins and sex slaves, right? So like that's so the name of the company is the name of the play that introduced the term robot. And so like even if you're watching Metropolis, and even though it's a silent film, you'll see written in it they'll refer to her as a robot. That actually comes from the context is not, it's not long afterwards, I guess is what I'm saying, like that this was a new concept to present it in the what is the nature of a robot. And so she's kind of like a robot in that she's automated by the industry, so she's just she is a product. And so inherent in her, you know, from her beginnings with the Fame and the Fame monster, you have this like kind of subliminal communication around she is one thing, and then what's being projected to the masses is something else. And so what I'm saying is that within every album, you can see a place where what she actually is, what she wants to do creatively is like coming through. And it's almost like, despite that, you know, the high priestess being held hostage, or the, you know, the leader of the workers, you know, like, because the robot's there to direct the workers. Like they say, like, the thing with the winking, you know how like all the musicians, they do this thing where they cover the one eye thing. There's this scene in Metropolis where I forget the guy's name, but he's built the robot, and he's seen her for the first time as
Frederick. Is it Frederick?
Frederick is the
Frieder's and Frieder's son,
right.
and Frieder's son's father is actually, I think, Rotwang. Rotwang is the inventor who's friends, who at least knows. I think there's a love triangle between the hell, right, Hellenism and Helena and all this other stuff, who they make Maria the robot into to look like an effigy, but it's actually Rotwang is the inventor. But when he makes Maria into the robot, there's the winking eye, and it becomes a major point that Maria always has one eyeliner set that's a bit darker than the other eye. You know, for instance, you can see it's always a thing going on there. So right. We can find the wink too.
It's like right and left brain. So, and how it crisscrosses to the eyes. And so she's in that scene, she's agreeing that she's going to control the workers. She's like, I will control the masses for you. And then she's winking. And then what does she do? She, yeah, there it is.
Right.
And so like my feeling is like, and you can relate it to like the Eye of Horus, or even the Eye of Thoth as the other
or eye robot. That's pretty good.
yeah. Totally. So it's like, you know, and so I see Lady Gaga as kind of like, that's kind of her symbolism to begin with. It's like, and you know, if you pair the Fame monster with Metropolis, it's uncanny. And there's specific things that happen that are like, as far as I can tell, like total sync winks that make me, it would be so unbelievable for it not to be intentional. Like the way that you start the album when the pyramid turns to black at the very beginning. It like I don't know if you like, there's the opening shots of the film, it starts from the top of the pyramid and then it goes down almost like it's like the pyramid's being covered in blood or something, you know.
As above, so below, because there's the son of the club of men, the club of the sons of men, and then the workers, the pyramid going up and down. So it's just very much the dynamic that's being created, right?
Yeah, and so there's certain things that happen, like in the song Telephone, the intro to it, when he there's a phone call at the beginning of that, and it's like, you know, that in the song, it's like she's answering a phone, and then there's like, and then the beat drops, and it happens to correspond to the exact moment. It's a prediction of like the iPhone, right, where he's looking at a monitor in Metropolis, and he sees the guy, the manager of the workers, and he's all freaking out, and he goes to the phone and he's like looking at it. I don't know if you know, like there's a lot of predictive things in Metropolis, but that's one of the ones where it's really uncanny. You're like, we're literally living with that now. But he like picks up a big phone to talk to him while he's looking at him, and it happens to correspond to him picking up the phone is the answering of the phone, or the phone call at the beginning of the song Telephone. And then like when he drops the phone on the receiver, that's like the beat dropping. It's ridiculous. There's like a subtitle that says kill him when you said Frederick, but the son of the
Frieders and Frieders' son. Frieders' son is son of Frieders.
So
like Anderson.
She runs in the room where she's trying to amp up the workers to revolt when she's now a robot. She's not Maria. And he goes in, he's going to try and stop her. And then the subtitle says kill him, like just for a second. And if you listen closely in the song, I believe it's Dancer in the Dark, there's literally a sample that just says kill him. And like it's on the same second. It's just like kill him at the same time. And it's so ridiculous. Like I'm like, it's hard for me to imagine that it wasn't just made that way. And it makes sense because Lady Gaga, where did she get her name? You know what I mean? Like it's Babel. And so it's also very resonant with what's being communicated in Joker, right?
For your sync, did you use the recovered footage of Metropolis? Like which version did you use?
It's the 80s version. It's all about the 80s version.
Okay. So that would have, Okay. But then there's the other thing in terms of like syncing it is that I only learned about this recently, but I guess like the weird jittery movement of these early films is because they were being run at a different frame rate.
Yes.
So, everything. Well, there was at 18 for the original Metropolis.
Yeah. So have you tried syncing with like slowing it down?
You know, when I first went to do it, I did it with another version, and then it became really obvious it's the 80s version with Pat Benatar and all of that, and would otherwise be Pat Benatar.
So they're different things because the 80s version is what's his name? I'm sorry, the Daft Punk guy.
I want to say Guillermo, but no, what is his name? Moroder?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Giorgio Moroder. Yeah.
Giorgio Moroder. Yeah, he's his version of it. And so I was in Argentina in 2008, 7, 9. I forget which one. Has been there multiple times. And so I met this girl, and I went to her grandmother's house. And so we found a copy in her attic of the 16 millimeter print of Metropolis, right? And so because I know people in Germany, like the Babelsberg film, what's it called? A restoration group worked to restore the missing scene of Metropolis. So it's been a major part of my life, all of my life, right? So when I was little, one of the first things I remember about Metropolis, I walked into my dad watching this film in black and white, and that was the Giorgio Moroder version. That was the first version I ever saw. And I was like, what's going on here? He's like, well, this is this old movie. It was a very important movie. It's an amazing movie. But as we were watching it, I'm like, well, why is there no sound? Like, well, they didn't have sound back then. That's how old this movie is. Why is there this black and white scene where they're explaining what's going on? Why don't they just show it? Well, because that scene was destroyed when Americans bombed Germany, and there's no copy of that scene available. So they just had to kind of explain what they had based on the version that was cut and sent to America. And so the version that was sent to America, they cut out some specific things to make it shorter, and also to get rid of some of the sexualized energy, because like the Yokohama district and all these other things that are important to the German version of the film that they removed completely. So what I find interesting is when they finally were able to repair, because like the 16 millimeter print that we had it was really, really damaged. There's no way that we were going to watch that print. It was going to you were going to copy this print and try to get some of one frame and fix it with some other frame. And this is before AI. So now with AI, I'm expecting pretty much this year that we're going to see an even higher resolution of some of those missing scenes. But
are you saying you were involved in finding the lost print?
Yeah, I was involved with. I was actually pivotal in finding the lost print, which is kind of like a nice little clout thing for me. But
that's wild because Yeah, because I did a live score of Metropolis with a friend of mine, which was a big deal. It was on my second Metonic return. It was right after my second Metonic return, and it's online. It's the Mutable Boys playing Metropolis. If anyone wants to hear that,
I want to see it. Send us the link, and I'll put it in the details for you guys to watch. Yes. So the next thing was when they finally fixed it in the Babelsberg Theater. They presented it with the original orchestral score. So it's interesting to me that this silent film is so pivotally around music playing, and for them to show it, they played it with the orchestra live as they're watching the movie, right? So the first time that we're all seeing this movie, the orchestra is seeing this movie for the first time too. They're playing the music for the first time since 1927 when it was shown in Babelsberg with its original music at the same time. And at that point, I was in the process of trying to cut together my own kind of music thing. I was trying to get different kinds of techno, and I was like, dude, we'll make some modern music that makes this work. But it's so already discerned what they were trying to do that it's impossible, I think, to top what they were trying to do with the original thing. But in the sense that this American version existed, Giorgio Moroder, I think, is the closest thing you have to, because he clearly studied music so hard. He knew exactly what they were trying to do with the music for the original to begin with. So it's incredible. But then David, you found the Lady Gaga sync. And I think, like I've said before, there are some syncs which are completely by accident, and there are some that are not. And this one falls under the latter category. This is clearly
it's hard to imagine what that would take for this to just be
an accident.
Downplay it like that. It's like synchronicity is a real phenomenon, but my feeling is that both can be true, where it's like they know that there's an organizing principle in nature that we call synchronicity, that our goings on are not separate from patterns that exist in nature, that this is just how things are. But at the same time, when there is a degree of intention, what can come out of that is like a whole other level.
I have a theoretical question.
It's magic. Yeah,
it is magic. That's right. Mm-hmm. So yes, there's absolutely like this organizing natural energy, synchronicity that binds things together, that causes things to trend. Entropy is not the most powerful force in the universe at all. But do you believe that specific spirits and supernatural forces can then speak to us through synchronicity? That this is
like elementals.
That Clockwork Elves thing. I think that's who said that on. I'm trying to remember like the name of the Eddie Vedder. I think Eddie Vedder was a guest on Politically Incorrect with Bill Maher in 1999, and he said something like that these like sort of synchronistic entities were constantly interfering with his life and communicating through synchronicities. I thought that was of all people to say that, right?
No, I think any artist has had experiences where they create something and then it comes true. Like that's a real thing. But as far as I'm concerned, it's because when you're entering a true creative mode, you're siphoning something from outside, and it's the creative world, the imaginal realm is the spirit realm. It's the same thing, so you're siphoning things through metaphor, and it's real. And the spirit realm is beyond time. It doesn't experience time like we do as humans. So it's seeing things from all over the place. So things from the future can come in and become a part of an artistic work.
There's something to be said about, like it's like a cold cut thing of like, let us play. And like they invented the one of the original programs for personal sampling.
Wasn't it called VJam or something like that?
Yeah, I forget what it's called. It's been a while, but it was an early sampling tool that where it's just like you want access to that. So like it's a lot of the time I feel like not X is great because I can just share my work and I don't really have a problem, knock on wood. But like Jeff Daniels in Pleasantville, when he's like in court and he's like, well, maybe you could tell me which colors I can use. Maybe I can, like it's crazy to me that it's like when it comes to censorship right now, it's like we could probably get away with talking about, adrenophlome, or it's one of these kind of like conspiracy minded things we could more likely to get away with that than we are utilizing copyrighted material, even just for a second. Like, I wanted to just give a glimpse in my video of like the ending of what happens when you pair Nick Cave's Ghosteen with Joker, because I want to encourage people like just to get a hit so people can go and be inspired to see it through, because in my opinion it's incredible. And it also, like, it speaks to, like, when Quentin Tarantino is referring to subversion on a mass scale, like, I'm of the sense that, you know, after all these years of looking at what I've looked at, that this is actually a tool that artists will use at times to communicate something that you wouldn't get from either particular piece of multimedia on its own. And so it's almost like I relate to it kind of like the way that light will refract water at 42 degrees to produce a rainbow. Like, the water is one thing, the light is one thing, you bring them together, you get this other product. And so, like, I'm like, it's crazy. Like, you'll have like subliminal communications come through, you have your aha moments like through that. So for me, like, when I think of Joker, the original Joker, I'm thinking of Nick Cave, because I'm so immersed in that. Like, that's been my experience more than just watching the film by itself. And there's like an emotional texture to that. Like, this is like just like the syntax of my experience is that this was how I related to Joker in the first place. So imagine my sense when this is my connection to it, that the second movie comes out and he's in the soundtrack. There's a lot of musicians out there. Like, he came out with the album the same day and year as Joker. That is an album to his son who died. There's multiples of his son have died, and they don't technically know if it's a suicide for sure, if it was an accident because he fell off of a cliff. But you know, the album is dedicated to his son who passed, and there's like this really heavy element of like the birth of tragedy kind of communication, where like it's Syd Barrett's last line when in any Pink Floyd song was on Saucer Full of Secrets at the end in Jug Band Blues, where he says what exactly is a dream and what exactly is a joke, you know, which one could say maybe is kind of like related to Stranger in a Strange Land, when the guy from Mars realizes what humor is, when he's realizing like the nature of he's looking at the primates, so he sees the ape laughing at something, and how in order to find something funny you have to be above it. Like, you can't like it's at the expense of something or someone else, you know, like that's the nature of humor, is that you're above something, which is the same thing with like knowledge in the first place. Like, in order to know something is like to be above it, which is, you know what I mean? Like you have an overview, you have a sense of it, you have like, just like in life, if you have a success of any sort, you're overcoming something. So like knowledge is like overcoming something. It's like, you know, that's the psychology of knowledge. But then humor is the same way. You're literally like, you're above the thing that you're looking at, you know. So it's a developmental thing, it's an evolutionary thing. Like, if you do mushrooms and you're coming up and you start laughing, like the nature of humor is really like, you get like, you know, it's hard to communicate that in language, but like that's to me is like Kubrick's films. Like Eyes Wide Shut is hysterical. 2001: A Space Odyssey is hysterical. The whole interplay between David Bohm and Hal, like, I suggest you sit down calmly, take a stress pill, and think things over. Like, try like begging for it's like that's a riot. Like, but it's a different type of humor. It's like how biblical humor is. Like, the Bible's loaded with humor. Like Moses going up Sinai, like
one of the stone tablets. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
The stone tablets. Like, you don't need Mel Brooks to make to make his film making fun of that to see the humor of that. Like, it's already there. Like, he's pissed off. Like, he receives something from the hand of God, comes down the mountain, gets pissed off, destroys whatever that is. We don't know what it was. Goes back up the mountain, pissed off. The way that it's written in the Hebrew, he didn't write it like it didn't, like Hashem didn't write whatever he came back down with. He did. That's the joke. Like, and then it's rules. We don't know what was it rules before. What was it? What did we get? You know, it's like that.
I always got the impression that the first one was like much nicer, and they're like, you humans are messed up. No. You need to order.
You don't deserve this. Yeah.
Nothing's funnier though than like, you should probably sacrifice your first son. I think you wink. I think you should. Let's see how. Right. Joking. You don't have to.
Well, there's the alien thing. Like, somebody in the comments says, and David Bowie, the man from Mars, like I was talking about Stranger in a Strange Land, but it's an alien thing relates to the Golden Bough, because he has to be an alien. He has to be, for the ritual to work the way that it would traditionally, anthropologically, he has to be a complete outsider. And so Joker is that, like him going on Murray Franklin's show is he's the outsider now on the scene. He now is he going to do the thing that is the ritual that's supposed to happen. So he's like, so like Todd Phillips is relating to it like literally this is a franchise, it's like a king, like it's the king of the industry, right? Like here's, you know, and he's going to go in and as an outsider and accomplish this thing. But the crazy thing is that like he's funny, like he has to be funny. Like those are funny movies. Like Old School is fucking funny. I'd say what you will, but like it's a funny movie. The whole thing with Snoop Dogg and all that stuff. And then like Joker isn't funny. There's, you know, it's not funny in any usual sense. Maybe if you took acid and watched Joker, you might have a laughing fit. But like it's because it's another level of like, it brings into question like what I was saying about Sid Barrett, like what is humor, right? Like really. Like, and it's the same thing. Like it's funny. Eyes Wide Shut comes from a novella called Dream Story. Like that is the question: what exactly is a dream and what exactly is a joke? Because they're related, you know. So yeah.
Well, I find that last line haunting in a lot of ways, especially because there's a story of where they were all mocking Sid and then realizing, oh no, he's really gone. Like this isn't funny, you know.
Yeah. I recently watched a documentary about Sid Barrett that came out, and there's actually a couple places where I know other things that aren't, I know corollaries that aren't included in the documentary because of somebody who's been close to me that was there at the time, you know, and they interview Sid Barrett's girlfriends, and I have a connection to one of Sid Barrett's girlfriends, and she told me some stuff. So they're a little misleading in the way that they present it because it really did come down to one night. So the treatment is still one of, oh, it was this progressive thing where he was losing it. And it's like, well, he was on acid, so he was out there, but it was really just a mistake. He took a shot glass of LSD and was never the same after that. And they didn't,
and but it didn't help him with locking him up and screaming at a party the whole time, right? Like they had a party while he was locked up.
Yeah, well, yeah, they didn't know what to do with him, and at that time they didn't know about Thorazine or anything like that, and they were not going to call 911 when they're all high in a house. So it was just like, what do we do with them? And they put him in a room, and then you know he was never the same after that. So they don't say that explicitly in the documentary. They kind of treat it like it was this gradual thing, which isn't necessarily the case. Like, you know what I mean? Like it was really came down to one accident. You know, we think it was an accident. We don't know for sure. He walked in the room, took the glass, and just took it back, which is, you know, whatever that was, 1,000 hits or who knows. You know, I don't even think anybody before that we know of, like even if you look at what the CIA was doing, if anyone had ever taken a single human being and taken as much as Sid Barrett took, you know.
Yeah. Oh, didn't help him. Didn't help him one bit. I mean, but hey, does that like relate back? I mean, isn't that kind of where we were going with the title of this? Nickelback is occult symbology. I mean, realistically.
Are you really getting into Nickelback, or are you trying to just mess with people?
A little bit of both. No, I mean, like, because like when I was young, I used to know better than to like Nickelback. I did like that one time. You know what I mean? Everyone has their Nickelback curious stage when they're 11 years old, and they hear "How You Remind Me of What I Really Am." That was that one time because it was like 2001, and it was okay. But then, like, I got the album, and I didn't like the album one bit, right? Like the Silver Side Up, whatever the heck it was, Silver Side Up, right? But just even thinking about it, I remember looking at the album cover then, like, okay, Nickelback, Silver Side Up, Liquid Silver, Crying Silver. Oh, it's about alchemy. Okay, there must be like something going. And his whole relationship with Avril Lavigne, right? Like, there's definitely something weird about the occult symbology of Nickelback, right? And the idea of cop for nickel, which is that they're trying to extract, you know, some sort of alchemical metal that they can use. Where's that symbol, right? The alchemical sign for nickel is infinity, essentially. You know, it's this kind of, right? There's something about nickel that seems already kind of weird in and of itself.
I thought it had to do with the pentagram because of the 5, and Nickelback is like inversion, so it's like an inverted pentagram or whatever. Yeah.
Of the 5, yeah, a down and Silver Side Up. Yeah, there's something there. Back. Seriously, there got to be. I don't know. But then I brought it up, and then Noah. Sorry.
Wait. Yeah. But I have more to that because
that's the thing.
I had an idea for like a novel that I wanted to write, okay? Which was basically this idea that there was this massive occult master from some weird British lodge who was this amazing composer. And so he kind of like took the Beatles out of obscurity and like did this stuff with them, and then they broke up, and he's like, they're too chaotic. So then he took on like all these 70s prog rock bands like Jethro Tull and ELP and all these people. And so all of a sudden in like 1970 or whatever, they start making all these masterpieces. They're all making these incredible masterpieces, and they're popular. So I wanted to like go in and dig into the lyrics and create my own sort of mythology from all these albums and piece it together. And then in around 1977, he dies. And they're just like, what do we do? And then you get the 80s output of all these prog rock bands. But then part of that was like, they all go do this very dark stuff, this very dark plastic stuff. And the lead singer to Gentle Giant winds up signing Nickelback as an executive producer. So that's like,
that was the one that's kind of weird. Gentle Giant, man. Gentle Giant's a weird freaking band. And like, they're as bad as Nickelback is, but it seems like more sincere and less, ironic.
So good. You don't know.
I don't know this band. What did they do?
They're so good.
Man,
They all played like 5 instruments, and they're like swapping instruments and stuff. It's awesome. It's nerdy. It's super nerdy.
I can't.
Like hard. Sorry for screaming, but that's basically what they sound like. They sound like that. I want to show you, but we're gonna lose like instantly, like the capacity to have a stream up if I show you. But basically, they're good because of how terrible they are, which is exactly how people would describe Nickelback. No, that's kind of the thing. There's a weird connection there. Only Nickelback is kind of that like Joker thing. We're like, okay, we're gonna give you exactly what you want. We're gonna give you Alberta bootcut jeans. You're gonna be at a cowboy bar full of meaningless working class people that just need to get through their lives and enjoy like the night. It's just, it's just such a level of disrespect to the audience. It's pandering. Whereas Gentle Giant's doing kind of the opposite, where it's like, we're gonna make music that makes us happy, that might make you want to leave. You're probably not gonna like this music if you're not a musician and you haven't taken 1,000 hits of acid. Gentle Giant might not be for you. That's kind of the band.
The best thing about Gentle Giant is that you can look at even these images, you can just see it. That like this lead singer thinks he's way too cool for this band. Like he's the one who thinks he's like gonna be a rock star, and then you look at the rest of them and they're just like, how many more subdivisions can I put into this phrase?
Dude, they're so good bad. It's the Joker. It literally is the Joker. I don't sign off
on any of this. This is editorializing. I don't agree with.
All right. If you were a normie, would you like Gentle Giant? I'm sorry. Just yes or no.
I'm as normal as it gets. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
If you were a normie, yeah.
Yeah. If you were a normie, you would go running. You go running as soon as you heard Gentle Giant. They're not the Might Be Giants. They're Gentle Giant. It's not. Oh, yeah. I don't know. But the fact that he was the producer, the Gentle Giant dude was the producer for Nickelback. So there's something there for sure. I don't know. And then just their connection with Avril Lavigne. Avril Lavigne got sued for that song she ripped off. Sued for plagiarism.
See, Avril Lavigne's ripping off Gentle Giant. They're commercial.
Yeah, it's just designed. Where's this girlfriend? Song sued. Was that the one? I forget. There's one of these songs where she ripped off. This is it. From I Want to Be Your Boyfriend. That's the one, right? The 1971 song I Want to Be Your Boyfriend. That was it. And so yeah, there's just the fact it all ties together by the Rubenews. That's what it was. And the Rubenews sued her for taking like that scene from her thing. And look at the checkered background, like the Masonic checkerboard, everything about it, the Rubenews, the name Reuben, Noose, like mind of Reuben, of the tribe of Reuben. There's some Kabbalistic thing about the Rubenews for sure. And just the more you... Sorry? Kiwi?
Because of Paul.
Oh, yeah, Paul Reuben. Yeah, that tracks too, man. But yeah, I don't know. The more I think about it, the more I think that like these bands are an intentional, like the music they're making is intentional. Nickelback is bad on purpose. And Spider-Man, like the fact that they did the hero song, he did the song for Spider-Man 2, and they say that a hero can save us, but I'm not going to wait anymore.
Spider-Man 2 is a freaking good movie as far as superhero movies go. I mean, of the Spider-Man movies, it's like the one, as far as I can tell. But,
which ties you back to Scorsese, because Scorsese had Andrew Garfield in his the Silence film that he made about the Jesuits in Japan, right at the Endo thing. So there's just that Scorsese leak back to itself.
Interesting. Yeah, you know what? I just want to say, like, when it comes to like one of the communications of Joker, that's kind of a psychoanalytic point, is that the discomfort and people, how it is that one can be present with being uncomfortable. Like his whole reality where he has this kind of like uncontrollable laughter thing or whatever, it's like where he's laughing where other people are being serious, and he's being serious where other people are laughing. But you know, like if you ever experience that thing where you think you know something, and somebody points out some big thing that you're missing or whatever, and there's that discomfort that one might experience of like that you don't actually know, like that's actually the best place to be, and it's the place we have the most aversion to. Like it's a very uncomfortable thing for just about anybody, because you contract when you're like being put in that spot. If you look at what's happening in social media and in life, you know, it's like people being, you know, like in an ideal world, you know, you'd present things the way that like Max in Pi presents them, where it's like restate my assumptions, you know, and you can kind of like restate your assumptions, but you treat them as assumptions, not necessarily like these are my ultimate beliefs that I need to defend. So like when I was first approached years ago by Bill about doing the Always Record podcast, I was like, the only way I'll agree to do this is if we don't do that thing I'm seeing on all these other podcasts, where we start out with our assertion, our conclusion, and then we try to back it up and defend it. I was like, I don't want to do that. I want to compile information, hopefully to the point that the information will almost just speak for itself and it doesn't even need us. So like, and that's kind of how I relate to like why I like Kubrick films so much, is because they can just like let the thing speak for itself. It doesn't need that narration in a way, you know what I mean, where everything is just explained to you. It's like encouraging you to figure it out for yourself, but also like you don't always have to be that. It's not really that cryptic. Like some of those things can be really straightforward. Do you know what I mean? Like it's right in your face, like but at the same time, because of the way that we're clouded with all of our beliefs, it's like we can't always see what's right in front of us, you know. It's kind of obscured by clouds, you know. So I don't know, I guess I wanted to point out something about just like the nature of like the challenge of being okay with that with that discomfort is kind of like what the Joker is kind of pointing to in a lot of ways, you know. Like I don't know, there's something to that.
Thomas, you got any thoughts about Nickelback?
Just when I thought I was out, they pull me back in. No, Nickelback?
That's from Jaws, right? That's a Jaws quote?
No.
No. That's just when you thought it was safe to go back in the water. Never mind.
Isn't it Godfather or Goodfellas? One of those two.
It's Godfather.
Thoughts about Nickelback?
Power Rangers.
I think that they are unjustly get lots of hate. There are way worse bands.
Nice.
They're way worse band. I'm not saying that they're good.
Sure. You're gay for Nickelback. It's okay.
Well, I relate Nickelback to shame, because my introduction to Nickelback was I was working shame because I was working at like in the mall. I was like, you know, a clerk in a store, and next door was the music store, and I had a crush on this girl who worked there. And so I went in and I was like, oh, what music are you listening to? And she was like, Nickelback. And I said, this is very good. And so I feel shame to this day. I lied to her face.
I mean, I just presupposed that I always was going to hate them because I bought the CD, listened to Silver Side Up, and like all I wanted to hear was that How You Remind Me of I Really Am song that was cool in that one music video. And then after that, I just hated it so much I returned the CD, and I found out that was like a thing people were doing. Apparently, a bunch of people returned that CD,
which is like, oh, I want my Nickelback.
Yeah, I mean, literally, Grandma was buying them.
Gorilla reference, like silverback gorilla. Is that part of it? Do they say where their name came from? Like, is it? Are we gonna have a video of like Nickelback predicts Harambe or whatever? Like,
I think you just did it just now. This is that video. It's happening.
Well, the origin of the name Nickelback is also doesn't add a lot of brownie points. Did you guys ever cover this? But apparently,
I don't know. Tell me.
The history of the name Nickelback was because Mike Kroger worked at Starbucks, and he would constantly say to people, "Here's your Nickelback," because I guess things were
Coffee
like
was $1.95. Yeah.
So he got so used to saying, "Here's your Nickelback," that turned into the band name. Like, I feel that makes
But even
it
that
worse.
working at working at Starbucks is already a Starbucks is an occult symbol in and of itself, right?
Yeah.
The twin-tailed siren, right? And at that time, right?
I like that as an origin story, because then every time your band name that you make millions of dollars off of is said, you're reminded of your humble origins, having to work at Starbucks. So it's kind of neat way.
Where's the picture? I mean, if we're gonna get banned for anything, let's get banned for showing the vagina of a mermaid. But this was the logo at the time, the original, Starbucks logo. So I feel like anytime you hear a story like that, it's kind of like when Tom McLean says that American Pie isn't about the crickets and Buddy Holly. It's like, we know it is. It's the same thing here. This is about the magic being. What did he do at Starbucks back when Starbucks was Starbucks and men were men?
Heroin.
Dude, did you ever hear that? It's from a while ago, but there's like that recording of somebody just calling all the levels of corporate to try and get at somebody to tell them what their logo is, like the origin of their logo, like the meaning of the logo. This is like years ago. And like they're going up through the chain of everybody in Starbucks marketing. So they're like calling through the marketing department, and they're getting sent to person, and like it's just like this long recording of all of these people, and like no one can tell them what the symbolism even is. They're like, it looks like a mermaid, it's got two tails. Is there what is it? And they couldn't tell them. Now I think you could just ask Grok. I'd be interested in what Grok has to say, or whoever.
I was actually at the original Starbucks last month in Seattle, on Market Street or whatever it was. And based on the population around there are actual human beings walking around that look like that mascot out in Seattle. So I don't even know if they started with the goddess, or if they just looked out the window and they were like, that guy or girl, or they, them, or whatever it was.
Right. Or the siren that's going to take you down to drown you, But there's what's happening with Starbucks right now, like with all these people protesting over the dress code. Like the dress code is interesting. They're like, they don't want like to go along with it. Like they see that as fascism to go along with the dress code, which maybe there's an argument to that. I don't know. But I have to say, like, I don't know if this is true or not, but like my guess was that that this was something that came from corporate because they're sick of dealing with a certain type of person that's drawn to work for them. And that this would be a convenient way to, in a non-discriminatory way, to weed out the people who are not going to be, or who are going to be a nuisance in the long run.
I think I can prove that right this second. So like, okay, what month is it?
May?
Besides men's mental health awareness month, because that's for granted. It's June. June.
George Floyd month.
Yeah,
we're getting closer. It's Pride month, right? It's Pride month. So you would think if you went to Starbucks, you would see a bunch of gay Pride pictures everywhere, right?
Oh, I thought you meant Gentle Giant Pride muds. Sorry.
That would be good too. But I mean, now I think of Gentle Giant as like a sexual.
Are we going to be doing the rest of the deadly sins and have their months? Are we going to have like a gluttony month and a,
well, Thanksgiving?
Yeah. Well, I think what's going on is they're done with it. Like if you go online right now and you go to all these corporations, what's another one that you would think would? Let's go to Nike. Let's go to Nike.com and see what they're doing here. Does Nike have a Pride month? Do you see anything? Nothing. Okay. What's another company that Google?
Target. I mean, Target's the most obvious one.
I'll go to Target and say, but Google, dude, wouldn't Google have Pride? Where's Google? Nothing.
Well, I'm assuming
that crazy?
There was some kind of like
G is already a rainbow. So
that have been removed now, right?
Go to Google.com. Nothing. There's not even no. The Pride Month is done. How about this? How about Rainbow Six? Because you'd think Rainbow Six, all these video game companies, right? Rainbow Six, gone. Nothing. No rainbow for Rainbow Six. I'm just saying. But they are going to say it's a mental health, men's mental. This is no longer Pride Month; it's Men's Mental Health Awareness Month.
It was a Pride-demic, and now we're on the other side of the.
But is this only a function of the new American administration? Like, if you go to other countries, is it still as Pride?
I don't think in Tehran they were ever doing Pride Month.
Yeah, but I mean, like Canada.
You know what I mean?
Let's check the Palestinian Starbucks just to
we should
make
see,
sure.
I'm getting my point. Like, so basically, what happened is
no
they
more
realized there were like 6 people buying coffee that were part of the Pride community. That's pretty much it. And they were the loudest people on the internet. So for a while there, corporations were like, hey, if we want to keep making money, we better entertain these people that are saying that they're going to be our biggest customers. Were they their biggest customers? No. And so then all of a sudden they were losing all these other customers. So now this is what corporations do. They go where the money is, and they basically realize that they're done trying to appease a minority group that isn't going to buy their product to begin with or end with, right?
Well,
and so I don't know, but Starbucks is doing that.
You can see the same thing happened when it came out that Starbucks had some sort of corporate endorsement or sponsorship of like Israel, and they were sending funds to Israel. There was a massive on TikTok boycott of Starbucks, but I mean, not a single line in the world was any shorter because of that. And I remember this one, I guess this one hit closer to home for me, but when I was at Disney, most of the people I worked with were gay or at least like pride adjacent or whatever. And there was a huge national push to boycott Chick-fil-A because they pushed for like gay conversion or something. I don't know what the exact ones were, but people were mad about it. And it was like, if you're gay or trans or pride adjacent, we're all boycotting Chick-fil-A. And not a single person, even the most flaming, like prideful gay person in my entire team, they would go out and buy the massive like Chick-fil-A platter and bring it for lunch. And I remember someone asking them, and we're like, aren't you boycotting Chick-fil-A because, this thing? And he was like, dude, this is the best chicken that you can buy. No, I'm like, no.
Satanists do the same.
Chick-fil-A, gay pride. Like, there was like a huge difference between the two.
Satanists will have Chick-fil-A delivered to their satanic rituals at this point. They don't care.
Right.
Like, dude, all right, really quickly. Check this out. It's true. Target, where's your gay pride? Where's your pride at, Target?
Starbucks, yeah.
I'm not kidding. You want to see one more? This is gonna astound you. Disney. I'm not kidding.
Well, they have actively tried to separate official Disney endorsement of Pride Month versus
did. It's gone.
What about PBS? Because they got the Sesame Street grooming.
Can we look up Poppers as Poppers endorsing Pride Month?
Are you talking about like actual Poppers that Gaiman like to use, or is there like a company called Poppers I don't know about?
Well, I mean, I just assume that there's like a major Poppers company.
I just remember Craigslist all the time. There were all those ads for guys that wanted to meet up and do Poppers, but PBS, I don't see any.
Did you know? Pride. Look, what did it just say there? It's talking about Arab month. What is happening here?
Arab American Heritage Month. That was for April. That's for April.
Earth Month.
Okay.
So yeah,
I think they might have just abandoned using Twitter. Here's one though.
Wow, dude. This is actually crazy. Headlines on Forbes.com, Slate.com, CNN.com are all saying this, that the major corporations are scaling back their public-facing pride endorsements, but it says that the internal promotion is still as active as ever, but it's not.
I'm sure gays can still buy products from these companies. They're not. Here's the thing that really the one that I could find was Blizzard, because Blizzard Entertainment, they've got a pride thing right now. But here's what you'll notice about it. Do you notice that this isn't pride for gays?
No,
that's trans, right?
This is trans pride exclusively.
Exclusively. That's the key word, is exclusively. You just said
exclusive. Yeah.
Well, that's the difference. So like I used to, I had a girlfriend that lived in the Castro. I went to the Castro for like, close to 2 years regularly. And the nature of pride that happened, like the pride parade that would happen in Castro, all about inclusivity, completely just positive. And now there's been a hijacking, and I was told yesterday actually that they're in the Castro itself right now. There's kind of a reclaiming, or not kind of, there is a reclaiming of them wanting back what they had and what the movement and the momentum of the movement, which was really just about acceptance. And so this isn't no longer just about acceptance. Like it used to be that somebody would say, I'm gay, and somebody would say, like, literally, like, I don't care. And that was a good. You're like, okay, so I'm accepted. Yeah, you're accepted. I don't care. You could be whatever. I don't care. And now it's like, I'm trans. I don't care. You're therefore a bigot. So that it's gone, and like attaching colors to say I've said this before, but I'll say it again, is that what the pride flag originally was, that was lifted from the rainbow family, by Harvey Milk, because what came first, right? So like rainbow gatherings and the rainbow family, which stemmed from the Grateful Dead, that what that flag represented was all inclusivity. Those colors did not relate to specific marginalized groups that we are saying this color represents this group, this color represents this group. It was just a blanket thing, and that's cool vibes. That's hippie shit. Like, who got a problem with that? And so then when they started saying, no, actually these colors represent these people and we want to include, and then it's like, no, now it's them against us, and you can feel it. Everyone can feel it, like, and to the point where people who are generally very accepting people are feeling themselves oddly marginalized by the group that's saying, hey, don't marginalize people. Like, it's very strange the way that flipped around as it did. And it does tie in with, you're talking about the corporate world, we're talking about what's happening now with ESG and everything attached to ESG, which was being looked to as kind of a safety blanket should we experienced an economic collapse where people wanted to be in good with the banks. That's why it was worth it for somebody like Bud Light and company like Bud Light to invest in Dylan Mulvaney and whatever, because it was worth the loss to them to get in good with that whole program, because it's global. Like, that relates to the World Economic Forum, and things that are happening with the World Economic Forum right now are changing too. This isn't just about the United States. This is like a big shift happening globally. So, yeah.
And I think the trans is a bigger thing in gaming generally. Like, you could think Rebecca Heinemann, who made like Baldur's Gate, Medal of Honor, Rising Sun, Pitfall. A lot of these GoldenEye Rogue, a lot of these games that a lot of people really love were made by Rebecca Heinemann, who, I don't want to dead name here, but used to be Bill Heinemann, right? And like they're married to Janelle Jacquez, born Paul Jacquez. So there's a lot of these gaming designers, people that are like the kind of the Matrix Wachowski kind of people.
Yeah, and the appeal of virtual reality is literally like as a detachment from reality, and like this is kind of like when people talk about the technocratic potential, like you shared something in the private messaging that this ties into about what is that Lord of the Rings company,
Palantir,
yeah.
All the big companies are made with Lord of the Rings names now. That's the thing that they're doing, right? But Palantir, right? Yeah. How does that relate? What were we going to go with on that?
Oh, well, in a variety of ways. Like, people are so concerned about data farming or whatever, but the way that the coordinated way in which they're going to link not just like, the intelligence agencies, but like how like that fusion of the corporatocracy with like government and corporations, all like, because we're trying to get past the corporate capture. There's a divide happening right now in government big time. Like, look at the spending bill that's taking place. You got Elon Musk speaking out against it wholeheartedly along with Thomas Massey, and you have Trump putting down Thomas Massey, saying we want to get him primaried, while he's representing the views of more of his base than anyone else in Congress. So there's a big thing taking place right now. I mean, you watch this guy. What's the guy's name who's the head of that company? We were just looking at Palantir.
Peter Thiel?
Not Peter Thiel, the other guy who went to Peter Thiel.
Corp or something like that.
Yeah, so that guy, like, if you watch talks from him, like, it's challenging, because you can see he's doing that thing that happens in Utopia kind of deal, where they're like, here, let us tell you like why it is that we want that we're rationalizing what we're doing, where you start to like look at like Bill Gates talking about lowering the population through vaccination, and you're like, oh, because you're going to sterilize the children and they won't know until they're older, and you're like, well, isn't that the most humane way to commit genocide? Like, just like,
do you mean Joe Lonsdale or do you mean Karp?
That guy who it's screen right now.
Yeah, so Karp's interesting because he talked about taking out the objectors, the conscientious objectors, and the news people that were going against him by spraying them with fentanyl-laced urine. That was his plan, or at least his joke.
A joke that's...
Is it a joke? He's joke. He's joke.
He's a joke. Anyway? You're the only one laughing. It's still funny, you know.
But I mean, like, clearly he's a nerd who likes Lord of the Rings. I was thinking though, because Palmer Luckey, right? Because Meta, Facebook, who bought WhatsApp, Instagram, and now they've bought Oculus, right? And Oculus was founded as a Kickstarter by Palmer, and Palmer went and started Anduril, right? Anduril is the fictional sword of Aragon from the Lord of the Rings, which even makes it into its logo here. So all the military companies went from Star Wars references to Lord of the Rings references after Enron, because Enron did the Wookiee Corp and they made up all these companies.
What is Palantir or whatever in Lord of the Rings? It's the Scene Stones, right?
It's the stone yeah, exactly.
He's making it out to be a totally positive thing. He's like, yeah, because we're going to use this for good or whatever. And it kind of reminds me of like that whole thing with Numbers 21 with the original currency that was the dollar, where it's like, these aren't the poisonous serpents. This is the healing serpent. Like, and you're like, wait, is it though? You know?
But it's the Nietzschean thing. If you stare into the abyss stares back. If you look into the Palantir, they see you through the Palantir. Right, so you're seeing by seeing,
but it can twist you like a pretzel if you follow this guy's logic, because he's so vocal. The one I was pointing at, I keep forgetting his name, but like the way that he'll communicate it, he's clearly like completely rationalized. He's on board with his own ideology, but he's very confident about it, and he's willing to discuss it with people. And he's like, yeah, let's talk about it. You know, like it's kind of unique. Like, I'm not used to these kind of corporate people being so forthright and just like, because he really believes that he's in this very moral place with what he's doing, or ethical place, I should say. But yeah, I'd recommend watching this guy's talks. They'll trip you out, dude. Like, I watched a few of them recently, and I'm just like
I don't think I'm psychologically capable of watching that man talk. Seeing his face is enough for me, I think.
He looks like the New Zealander guy who makes movies. You know what I'm talking about? Wakiki, you know, Wakiki. I forget.
You're talking about the guy who did Jojo Rabbit? No.
Yeah, totally. That one. What's his name again? It's like Watiki.
I always forget how to pronounce his name. Yeah.
Taiki Watiki.
Wakiki. No.
Watiti
Hitler better than anybody. Yeah.
Taika Watiti. He looks like, to me, the same guy, basically. A little bit more Maury, but not that much, you know, realistically.
I actually like his gay pirate show.
Yeah. No, I like his stuff. It just makes me annoyed.
Our flag is
weird movie, like early on too. That one where everyone keeps dying in his bathroom.
Our flag means death.
Our flag means death. And I mean, ironically, they're talking about the pride flag there. The
I never got that.
I thought you were joking about the whole like men's mental health awareness is taking over Pride Month, but I just found on the Halo page they had a post from Halo that was basically like June 1st. Hey, this is all about men's mental health. No mention of gay pride.
You'd think that. You'd think I was joking. A lot of people do. Men's mental health.
They're completely connected, and this is the thing. Not just gay.
Oh my god! Of course. How do you? You want to go on? Do you want to elaborate how transgender ideology might be related to Men's Mental Health Month? Do you want to do that? Because I don't know if I'm ready.
I don't know. Look it up in the DSM. look up gender dysphoria in the DSM, and then consider how it might be related to men's mental health.
Like, we could not have said this 6 months ago. That's really crazy. We're breaking new ground. True,
but
true.
You know,
sassy. That's good.
Well, I mean, we already got taken down for the copyright strike earlier, right?
That's what I'm saying, man. They're gonna come down on us harder for 3 minutes of a song playing than they are us talking about these very controversial issues.
Ironic.
Well, there was
is that ironic? Because really, you want free speech. You want people to be able to express their minds.
I want that. I don't think
is at least involved with the market and involved with people's intellectual property. I mean, I know it's rough on what you do, David, but like, I mean, I'd rather people be able to express controversial opinions than
Rainbow Six has one. June is men's mental. Like, look at even when Rainbow Six is celebrating mental health, you are not alone, bro.
I actually disagree entirely with that. And I no offense to you, but if you want to go into the specifics around what kind of world we could be potentially living in had we not done what we did in reaction to sampling, like, because like this is why I'm saying like the cold cut let us play thing, like what that could have been even for from a capitalistic perspective, because the way we're arguing about it is like, oh, we're going to be taking away from people's potential to make money off of this, but really the truth is that it would have made more of a challenge for artists to develop and give products more than just this kind of like linear treatment that we've been relating to it through. Like it's kind of like the government bailing out like GM or something because of military contracts. It's like, let it fail, see what people innovate to what they can produce to overcome that in this way and that way. Like the amount of potential that existed around sampling. Look at hip hop, like early on. Look what happened to Biz Markie. Like Biz Markie produced all this music, and they made an example out of him. They didn't even do it to everybody. You know, there's always that classic like Vanilla Ice thing where he's like, no, his goes, mine goes, and you're like, wait, what? It sounds exactly the same. What the hell are you talking about? But you know, there's just the possibilities that existed with sampling. If we hadn't put made a dam out of that and blocked it out, the type of world we could be living in is like it's so much better, like what it could have been had we not have done that. And it's a larger conversation, but I've been over it and over it. So in the context of what we're existing now, I can see why you say what you're saying, and I might even agree with it. But it's just like there's another timeline in my head that's so much better than this.
What TT timeline versus the Alex Karp timeline? You can't unsee it. Tell me it's not. I mean, come on, man. There's
that guy. No, I mean, I just listened to him speaking for probably over an hour with different interviews and like speeches, and he tripped me out because he's like doing that thing that happens with John Cusack in the last episode of Utopia, but he's not doing it in a little room, like kind of just like, okay, fine, Mr. Conspiracy Theorist, I'll tell you. He's literally just like very confidently and without any shame, just like owning it. You know, it's really weird.
What was so annoying about that scene in Utopia is, did you notice they cut it to just like absolutely goofy antics? They're like knocking over things. Oh, we can't, we're not finding it. Oh, you know, like, so it was like, we're going to tell you what's going on right now. And we made this before COVID or whatever happened. And then they cut it to like Looney Tunes slapstick stuff. Like, just like, oh, anyone who tries to take this seriously, you're going to look like an idiot, you know?
Well, right. Even though it makes total sense. Like what he's saying is like, that could easily be it. Like, you know, at least a huge aspect of it that they're like, let's do the most humane genocide we can, shall we? Do you have another suggestion? Because they're already convinced of it's not Utopia 25, it's Universe 25. What was it called? We've been over it before. The thing with the
rat experiment. But experiment. Okay, this is my own personal astrological conspiracy about all that. Right around that time, you had this Jupiter in Pisces where it rules, and Neptune is right at the end, and Jupiter and Neptune were conjunct. Okay, so you have this profound mystical signature in these charts. You had Saturn in Aquarius in its own rulership, and then that exact conjunction was happening with the Sun in Aries. Okay, so you have this kingly exalted sun able to marshal all these mystical powers, and then this structure around greater societal benefit, and suddenly something comes out where they're trying to reduce the population. You know what I mean? Like
they can rationalize reducing the population through it.
Yeah, but it was almost like they were targeting a very specific generation that could have been born that not many were.
Do you ever notice how at the center of woke fascism is just regular German fascism? I never thought about that. But like if you just zoom into that rainbow a little bit, you know what I'm saying? Like it's right there.
The New York Yankees are the
super gay.
Brian Taylor has entered the chat.
I'm just saying, because like Happy Pride Month, of course the Yankees are, you know,
You're right. There is the freaking German flag right in the middle of that. Like that's a trip. I never noticed that. Usually it's the triangle, so it's more veiled, but it's still the same colors in that sequence. So,
yeah, for sure. I saw it a second ago. Where was it a second? The Halo thing here. Somewhere a second ago. I think it was maybe it was the CD Project Red logo. Yeah, once I saw it, I just looked at this. I was like, whoa, look at that. And this is the regular rainbow, but when you get to the trans, this doesn't have the trans coloring. So the trans coloring is up here, and it really, I don't know, somehow it just stuck out a little bit more in this kind of interesting way. That's crazy. Oh boy. I don't know. Yeah, but like I thought it was interesting. It says it's okay to take off the mask because, like, what's a big thing about trans ideology is you don't feel like you are yourself, or you have to wear a mask. You have to get a cosmetic mask of your identity or something like that. So for Men's Mental Health Awareness Month, being that it's okay to take off the mask. That, I mean, maybe I'm overanalyzing, but it seems to me that there's.
You're not. It's huge. And also masking relates to autism, which has now become an identity for people as well. And so, like, you know, I work with autistic adults for over 6 years of my life. Like, I dedicated a lot of my life to working with the severely handicapped autistic people. There's one man I worked with for 2.5 years who had been in a straitjacket for years before I worked with him. Like, it's okay to acknowledge the gulf of distinction that exists between those severely handicapped people, children and adults, that can't function in society, that are not able to function in any you have community options and you have things that they can try, but it doesn't always work for people. They're not always able to handle that. There's a distinction between that and the people who are just on the spectrum. Like, they folded in autism with ADHD, and now it's become part of the culture war, is this, like, people identifying as autistic and treating it as though there was no difference. And it's not dissimilar to what just happened with the results of the boxer in the Olympics. Like, we could see it, like, you know, we kind of, you know, people say intersex. Yeah, the balls didn't come out when they were born, but they went through male puberty. You can see it in the structure of their body. The results came out. So we don't have to debate on that anymore. Like, people were debating that they might lose their medal. They probably should. But we watched a man beating up a woman on the global stage, and people were cheering for it, and others were really disturbed by it. That happened. You know, it's going to be okay soon. And this might be great for women's sports, like when it comes to the WNBA and everything. Maybe they can lower the nets, you know, like, that's okay. Like, there's a difference. It's okay to say that there's a difference between men and women. We used to just take this as a given. Now it's become taboo to even acknowledge. And there is a difference between severely autistic people and people who may have traits that, you know, share a certain commonality with autism. But there's a gulf of distinction, man. Like, it's like we can't go to the am I okay to say this? We're there now, right? Like,
we're there, okay. We're here.
Okay, cool.
There might not even be much of a world,
man. Yes. I saw the way people were reacting to Kennedy even acknowledging that distinction when it came to autism. And it's like, this is something that I've had such direct experience with. Like, I can't even, I'm like, oh, really?
And they're facilitating autism
about that?
Well, we got, you know, because apparently, I don't know, it's been a minute since Bobby Kennedy's been on the front stage, but he's been saying that they wanted to look into the root of autism. And they were saying, like, there really are a lot of factors that go together, which is, you know, both a way pharmaceutical companies can hide their culpability, but also true. I mean, it's true that we built a world that really facilitates this acceleration of autism, and then things that keep people from learning how to deal with their own lives. I mean, if you are maybe somewhat of an autistic person, in the 60s, you might have just collected stamps or something like that. But now, if you're raised with this freaking mask over your face, and you have to think about this is 2025, so we're 5 or 6 years into the COVID generation. Kids who were raised with masks over their face didn't get to see their mothers. We already scale that. Go back to inner cities in the 1960s when formula milk is being given, which once you give bottled formula milk to kids, they're not going back to the breast. Being at the breast, you're able to hear the mother, feel the mother, see her face really up close, get her antibodies and get her mannerisms, understand her mannerisms, and understand these things have been taken away from kids who are forced to have virtual Zoom Skype meetings as
this generation of children I'm talking about that was born right at the end of COVID, that one of the first things they did once they became infants was they made a run on baby formula. So they created this kind of like they did with toilet paper, right? They did this weird like, oh, there's not enough baby formula, you better run out and get it now, which is like
instead of just buying a bidet and breastfeeding your child like the Frenchman. Yeah.
Yeah, basically. But again, it was like, I feel like there's this generation they want to attack that they, you know, they don't want to reach full power.
For sure. Yeah, it's 100% real. Okay, we're going to get close to the end here, so I wanted to ask before it's too late about Shavuot, right? You want to tell me about this? You're Jewish.
Shavuot.
Tell me more. Shavuot. All right, what is it? What's it about? What's the feast? What's the harvest? What are we doing with Shavuot? Do you know much about this ritual? This was the other day.
Look it up, because I'm not going to do it justice at this point. You know, you got to understand, like, my connection to Judaism is mostly Jewish mysticism.
Sorry, didn't mean to pop quiz you. It's a biblical festival that marks the wheat harvest. Okay, so it's a harvest season, so you can kind of connect it to Halloween to an extent. You know, if you really wanted to. Although it happens middle of the year. Things change because of the lunar calendar.
Okay.
Yeah, but this is something that happened the same day that the Ukrainian the peace talks happened, which didn't go well in Istanbul. Istanbul being Tartaria, the Jerusalem or Jerusalem, not in Israel, but originally Christians and Jews and Muslims all thought that Jesus Christ was crucified in Istanbul, right? And they called it Jerusalem. And that was where a lot of Christians made their pilgrimage to go see. And there's all these paintings you can see of Christ being crucified in Istanbul. So it's interesting that they were doing the peace talks, and the Pope was trying to get the peace talks to be in the Vatican. The Vatican being a place where the Christians who were kicked out of Istanbul had to go and kind of justify their whole existence by making up this whole St. Peter thing, right? Because they're not really from.
That is kind of synchronistic, right? Yeah, so this is kind of edgy, but I'd seen that somebody was sharing these supposed flyers that probably existed. You know, this is probably a real thing. And they're saying they were coming from Israel, and it had something written in Arabic on them that wasn't actually a verse from Torah. It was a verse that was like maybe from the Quran or something, but it was speaking to the Red Sea. And somebody was interpreting this as saying, you know, that they're threatening that they're going to kill them with the Red Sea, the way that it was referencing something from the book of Exodus, where, you know, the mixed multitude, the Red Sea opened up, they crossed, but the thing that got me is I was like, this doesn't make any sense, because what in the story happens? The Egyptian army gets crushed. So I was like, they're saying that this is coming from Israel. What are they saying? That we're going to push like get crushed ourselves? Like
we're about
what
to
they were saying that it
ourselves.
said didn't make sense to me if you're following the allegory. Because I'm just like, and I'm like, is this coming from Israel, or am I looking at a bill that came from Hamas? But if you look at the edge, it's got the star, it's got indications that this is Israeli. So
didn't Israel kind of create Hamas indirectly?
Indirectly.
The best way I've heard it put, if you want to get into the particulars, is that there's a perverse relationship between the government of Israel and Hamas that goes back to 2006, when Hamas won by 3 points in their one and only election. So there was a lot of other groups that were running. This is my issue, is that it's one of corollaries. So it's like, and a lot of the arguments that when I do get in arguments with people online about Israel Palestine, and this might sound arrogant, I'm sorry, but it's kind of like somebody will stand there and they're arguing that 2 + 2 = 4, and I'm saying, yes, totally, I agree with you. And I'm over here looking at algebra. Like, I'm like, that is true, and this is also true. And some people can't handle that, because they'll just keep yelling at me, repeating this thing that I actually agree with. And I'm like, yeah, and there's other things here as well. And when you get into the particulars around Hamas and historically and what's been happening with Hamas, it's like there's the one simple way to put it is that nobody here is saints. You know, like I had an Israeli tell me that when I used to be on the other side of this in my 20s, completely on the other side, where I was just like repeating the phrase, you know, that, you know, anti-Zionism is not anti-Judaism, which I still agree with, But I was like, I had a communication with an Israeli man, and he was telling me, and I ended up disagreeing with him for even a while after this. I didn't agree with him at the time, but he was just saying, no one here, if we're talking about sides of the tribalism of this, is saints, and we want to root for the underdog. Maybe it's the Mighty Ducks, like we grew up on it, or something like that. Like, I can understand that, but at the same time, like, it's good to root for people who are being put into a horrible position. No, I'm not arguing against that. It's just that there is a perspective to be had here, and you're not getting it from the media right now. It's really, you're not going to get it from your algorithm, because your algorithm is generally being tailored to give you a bias. It's difficult. Yeah. Oh, you're muted.
Oh, no worries. I don't know how good of a sync this is, but you guys know that we're talking about the peace treaty a couple days prior to that, at the beginning of the Shavuot, however you say this, Shavuot. The Ukraine on Putin's way to the peace treaty talks, his helicopter, which he could pilot his own helicopter, but I don't know exactly if he had to end up doing that, was being attacked, and they tried to kill him. Ukrainian drones were trying to take him out of the sky on the way to the peace talk. So this didn't help the peace talks. Then the peace talks are happening, and they end with the bombing of Russia, which now there's this quiet before the storm, right? And Russia's clearly more, it's going to be all action, no words kind of a thing. And, we
deep in Russia, the attack, that's what's so freaking crazy, man. It's like,
yeah, and how they did this was they attached drones to the backs of Russian trucks. They espionaged them into Russia. So and then they used probably Starlink. We don't know for sure, but it sounds like Starlink was used for the drones to pilot themselves. So, and then Lindsey Graham had just gone to visit Zelensky
$100,000 for his hotel. Sorry to interrupt, man.
No, for sure. I mean, like, I hate Lindsey Graham. I mean, I can't help you. Like, I don't like the guy. But like, so here's the thing. We've set up. Alex Jones is crying on his own little thing, because we're basically, it should be obvious what's coming next, right? Like, it's going to be noon at midnight. That's kind of, I think, the next week's title is Noon at Midnight. And I had a weird dream about that this morning, for real. But I've been thinking about when things could happen, right? Well, June 12th is Russia Day. It's like Independence Day for Russia. It's the day that the day of adoption of the Declaration of the State Sovereignty, right? This is the day that Russia had independence from itself, from the Soviet Union that preceded it. And we think of this maybe differently than Russians do. I think Russians think of this as both the collapse of the Soviet Union, the Bush, H.W. Bush, CIA humiliation and defeat of the Soviet Union, the internal cancer that destroyed the Soviet Union after years of espionage and destruction of Pripyat, right? Chernobyl in Ukraine. This all kind of culminates in Russia Day. And so Russia Day, that's coming up on next Thursday, on June 12th. And there's another one coming. There's another day that's kind of like between Independence Day and Operation Barbarossa, right? And Operation Barbarossa was when the Reich invaded the Soviet Union, June 22nd. And this is the anniversary coming up. And so I just thought, hey, if there's a sync that's coming, I mean, they're going to sync them probably sometime between these days.
So Alex Fulton was called out, I think, June 10th to 12th or something like that. I might be wrong.
Yeah, and he did too. Okay, good.
That's a day or two after Jupiter ingresses into Cancer, where it's in exaltation, which is generally considered a real powerful place for Jupiter. Cancer, though, is the most nationalistic sign. Cancer is really where you protect your own.
Are we really rooting for the underdog if it just means perpetual war for them? Like, are we rooting for the underdog when the citizens of Ukraine, and so many, don't want
which is the underdog
go along with what they're being told? Like, are we getting a real depiction of what the people of Ukraine actually want, or what their government is pushing? And so it's similar with like Israel. The amount of protests against Netanyahu's government in Israel is like, it's crazy. It's never been to this degree. We're not getting told that from Al Jazeera necessarily. The amount of what's been happening with Palestinians, Gaza, like protesting Hamas at the risk of what that could mean for them. Like there's huge protests happening for that. I'm hardly seeing any of that in mainstream, even X. Like, people think if you're on certain, other social media that you're getting a full picture too. They're like, oh, I'm hip. They're like, no, you're not seeing. Like, they're shouting, "Where is Al Jazeera?" Like in the streets in Palestine, wanting to know why they're getting no media coverage as they protest against Hamas. So, like, I'm sorry, it's very relatable to what's happening in Ukraine. They're grabbing people from their families and off the street, like, and handicapped people and everything, and putting them into war zones and like forcing them to fight a war that they don't want to fight, that they don't think that they can really win. And we keep asserting, like, come on, just it's sunk cost fallacy in both cases. Like, I'm like, is there another way to do this? My God, what does it mean? Like, to
what I would say about that, a couple of things. One, Russia's kind of just wants not to have to use nuclear weapons. It sounds like they've been, because like they would have done it if they wanted to. You know what I'm saying? And Alexander Mercurius, which you might have seen, I've done an interview with him from the Duran. He was just recently quoted one of the largest subscription newspapers in the Berlin area, the Berliner Zeitung. And they talked about, in the first paragraph, recently, London-based geopolitical analysis Alexander Mercurius, whose grandfather, by the way, was the governor of Athens in the 50s. From the blog, the Duran claimed that he is certain that the Taurus missiles, and Taurus, let's remember that symbol there for getting into astrology, like a bull that will not stop where it's going. Missiles are already in Ukraine. See, this is the thing. Russia just said, we don't want to see NATO around surrounding us, and we don't want to have the Taurus missiles in the Ukraine. Well, Germany got afraid and said they weren't going to send them. But what does that mean? That means that they already did secretly some other way. And he said that they're already in the Ukraine and are being prepared for use. Mercurius explained that the involvement of Germany and the Americans would be necessary for the deployment. So this is something that Germany's been saying, okay, well, if we do this, it's amazing that NATO's militarizing Germany, because I don't know how good you are at history, but every time Germany goes to war with the world, it doesn't go super well for them. But you brought up the underdog thing, and I was legitimately confused what you meant, because I was like, which underdog? What do you mean? Because do you mean Russia? Because here's the freaking map, right? This is the NATO spider. This is the spinner.
Public messaging and PR and perception, not the reality when I say that.
Of course. Well, Die Spinne was the spider, was the post-World War II organization that helped certain Nazi war criminals escape prosecution, often considered a branch of Odessa, right? So this is an SS kind of thing that went on there. And then we know about Operation Gladio. Operation Gladio is the government that took over Europe, right? This is the stay-behind operation of armed resistance that the Western Union, NATO subsequently created by the CIA. Operation Gladio runs this town, and they're basically the Spinne. So it's interesting looking at that map for Independence Day. We have let me go back here for a second. The spider web of NATO versus what might be construed as the underdog, which is Russia. And so how history repeats itself, but how scary this time is, because we're very close to what's probably, the World War III, we've been waiting for it since the 60s, right? It's about time.
Right. Why do people want a Cold War back? Like I was looking at like what Oliver Stone's been saying about Russia, because he went to Russia a few short years ago. Wasn't that long ago? What, 5 years ago? And sat with Vladimir Putin and watched Dr. Strangelove with him, and like had like this whole like back and forth kind of commentary as they were watching it around what Putin thought of it or whatever with translators.
Mandrake, like roots,
yeah, totally. But he's over there. He's just like he's like, why do they want this back? Like, we'd actually made all of this progress with our relationship with Russia, and it's like people are just like super like, yeah, let's.
Well,
I don't understand.
Russia tried to join NATO in the 90s, right? Bill Clinton. So Putin went to Clinton and asked to join NATO, and Clinton said, "That's a good idea. I like what you're saying. Let me get back to you about that." Then he went home. The next day, he comes back and he says, "I talked to some people." In other words, his bosses, and the bosses told Bill Clinton, Mr. President of the United States, that he's not to do it, right? Bush. So H.W. Bush, who was the boss of Bill Clinton, told him, no, Russia cannot be part of NATO for strategic reasons. And so this is an interesting moment for so many reasons, because it could be the United States and Russia as the East and West empire of Tartary, the confederated world power again. But it's not going to be NATO. Like, that's pretty clear. What's going on is NATO's going to screw itself to death, man. That's
Russia provides almost all the grain for the entire Middle East, and people here talking about people starving in certain places in the Middle East, and I'm just like, dude, like, what is the sanctions and everything that we're trying to do? Like, I don't get it. I don't know. Well, I don't think we have to treat it that Russia is like necessarily the good guys just because we want to not have to have a war. Like, it doesn't make any sense to me why we're treating everything through this lens of good guys and bad guys, like we're freaking in second grade watching Cowboy and Indians movie. Like, it doesn't make sense, you know.
No, it's more like the bear, and you shouldn't poke the bear. You know, it's one of those things where if a kid pokes a bear and he pokes a bear and he pokes a bear and then he pokes the bear again, the bear doesn't need to say, okay, I'm going to give you one more chance before I. You know, that's not how bears work.
Look, bitch, you knew I was a snake. Like,
yeah,
I don't know.
Give me some more cocaine.
Because we're
good movie, by the way.
What's about to happen is we're in days after June 12th. Jupiter is going to make the final square to Saturn. Okay, these are the Jupiter Saturn cycle is huge for what's happening in the world. The last conjunction was 2020, right before January 6th. And Chris Knowles has a really interesting article showing that really that was a ritual uniting them on Saturn coming. Anyways, it's a whole thing.
He's right.
I won't do it. I won't do it. That's how I first learned about Chris Knowles. But so that's where that conjunction was, which is the first conjunction in air signs, other than the Libra. The 200-ish years, Jupiter and Saturn will meet in one triplicity, in one element. So we're coming out of the age of Earth, and now we're into the age of air over the next 200 years. And that was the first one. So that was a big moment they wanted to consecrate, you know, and use for their own purposes. So now Jupiter and Saturn did a series of 3 squares. So this is the waxing square. This is the challenge to bring something to fruition. Now, what was going on in 2020? What were they trying to bring to fruition then? You know, what seeds were they planting in the human consciousness? I mean, it's a big moment, and Jupiter has a lot of power in Cancer, but it's being restrained by Saturn and by Neptune. Neptune's in Aries as well. So Neptune in Aries is bringing these dreams of war, but Saturn tends to restrain wherever it is and create some caution around it. So my high level optimistic read of it, and I don't claim to be a great mundane astrologer. I don't spend enough time obsessing over the news to do that. But my optimistic read is that Saturn is going to restrain the war instincts over the next 2.5 years, because we have this like heavy. It's building. It's coming, right? And I hope that Saturn's able to cool things off, which is what it does.
Well, what's happening with Mars then?
Mars went through a serious retrograde cycle over the past 6 months. Was retrograding in Cancer and Leo, but in Cancer where it was in fall. Okay, so Mars is, but also Cancer is the most nationalistic sign. That's where you protect your own. It's mama bear energy, right?
Yeah.
And I mean,
well, I'd say Capricorn too, right? Though in its own way, or in terms of the structure.
Well, the interesting thing is that on June 12th, the moon's going to be in Capricorn. So that's what I wanted to mention. But yeah, I mean, it's a different, but it's a polar axis. All the axes, because they're opposite, right? Capricorn and Cancer. All the axes are complementary. You know, they're challenging, but they're complementary. So yeah, Capricorn wants to build those structures and Cancer wants to protect them, but Cancer also births, right?
Noah, did you finish the rehearsal?
Yes, I did. Yes, I did.
Okay. So did you see The Curse?
Yes, I did.
So you remember the last episode of The Curse?
Yes.
Remember what happens? What happens to him? He's falling up, and he's falling up. What is the end of the rehearsal? It's him landing.
Right.
I would make the argument that this season of The Rehearsal is as much the second season of The Curse as it is the second season of The Rehearsal.
Interesting. Because he seeds in. It's like, oh, I have to be careful with Paramount Plus because they haven't greenlit the second season of The Curse. It's like, you're not making a second season. Why would you make a second season of The Curse? Like
it's a communication. Like he still could, you know. But
think about that plot. Why would you want to go back to it? Is that not a cohesive, complete thing?
So I wanted to just point out the thing when we were talking about masking, right? Like what masking is for autistic people, as he talks about when he's with that congressman from Tennessee, I think is where is he? Yeah. But yeah, the whole thing where he's making the connection between the pies. The first episode happened to correspond to the transcript coming out from the Black Hawk helicopter with the woman who refused to listen to the people around her. We can look at the transcript and it's like, ooh, they hit a passenger plane and all these people died, right? Because of a communication issue. Like, it wasn't just like, with a helicopter, but it's so relatable synchronistically. But if you look at everything that's happening now, Andreas is pointing out with Putin, with his flight, and then you got these drones coming after him. Like, there's all, like, it's tripping me out. Like, there's all of these elements. I really believe that Nathan Fielder has kind of tapped in to this kind of archetypal thing that we should be focusing on, that has to do with like human relationship, like the most basic fundamental things. And he's not, the joke at the end when he points out it's all about his capability, because we've been treating it that everyone wants to identify. It's oppression Olympics, right? Everyone wants to be, not everyone, but a lot of people want to be disabled in this or that way. They want to be oppressed. They want to have these challenges. Like, I'm not capable. Whereas he's like, screw whatever label you want to give me. I can take the test and not even look at the results, because I am what I am. I'm capable of what I'm capable of. It's a much better message, like, than the messaging that we've been being given culturally of how we're not capable. Like, I just, to me, that feels like a very like strong manipulation of the public to just be like this kind of, it's like they you can't have it both ways. You're either empowered or you're not, right? It's like, you can't be like, I'm empowered through my disempowerment. It's like, what are you talking about? I'm sorry, it's end rant.
No, it's cool. But I mean, so June, it looks like June might turn into the gestation for war. Late July, though, is kind of a flashpoint, right? Mars, Uranus, Pluto, and the T-square, and so it seems like late July could be something pretty bad, but briefly, like a brief bad. And then the real concern is like January, February 2026, right? That's when we're going to begin probably the long-term inevitable extreme conflict. I think this is just astrology. This doesn't necessarily mean that it's true, right? We could be wrong, right? Like, but yeah,
I don't know.
serious.
Personally, I'm still not sure. We're heading into
Mars retrograde in Scorpio, forming a T with Uranus and Pluto. January,
well, July 7th is big, because that's
oh, dude, no, you're not talking. Why were you talking about that? No, that's scary.
What's
like,
that? What just, sorry, I missed that.
You just fucking said
Mars retrograde in Scorpio, forming the T-square with Uranus and Pluto. January, February 2026.
No, that's not true. It's not going to be retrograde again for 2 years.
Mars.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure.
Where's seeing that, Andreas?
I pulled this together. Let me see. Hold on.
Oh, don't tell me you're doing grok astrology now.
You don't like it? You don't like when I use grok?
Okay,
retrograde Astro Seeks 2026, February 2026. February 26, right here. Retrograde.
That's Mercury.
Begins.
Yeah, that's Mercury.
No, sorry, but Mars. Oh, no, Mars retrograde. No, 2026.
Jesus
Show me the
Christ,
2026.
scared the hell out of me, Andreas. I was like, that can't be. Oh no, that's like the
right here. Retrograde Mercury, 2026 February. Yeah.
All right. Yeah.
We can handle.
It's not that big a deal.
I can't handle Mars retrograde and Scorpio coming right up. No thanks.
But
also, in July, we have Uranus entering Gemini for the first time. So now we have all the outer planets coming into masculine signs at once and forming this like trine sextile pattern, which, like a lot of people going way back saw this as a super beneficial alignment. And maybe it is, or maybe it's being used to empower restricting freedom instead of giving it. Like, we'll see.
I've never heard of squares or conjunctions ever being seen as like a harmonious. Like,
no, well, it's not though. Like the outer planets are in trines and sextiles.
Okay.
So ChatGPT, based on astrology, Mars does not appear to occur during this time. Okay, so let's calm down. All right, that's nice. Yeah.
Thank you.
Jesus.
Sorry, all AI astrology just washes past me. I don't pay attention.
Oh, I feel better now.
Hear you say it.
Good job. Good work. God. Okay, we're gonna be safe. All right, that's nice. Yes, you don't
the hell out of me over here with your astrology, man. It's like that Trump trackdown episode. You know what I'm talking about? from the 50s where he gives everyone the umbrellas, telling him it's going to protect them from the meteors that are going to fall on their heads. You know what I'm talking about? When the guy have you seen this, Noah?
No, I've heard about
crazy,
it.
Dude, go to YouTube and type in Trump Trackdown. The episode is called "The End of the World," where a guy named Trump rolls into this town in the Old West, and he's like a snake oil salesman, and he tells them they're all going to get hit by freaking meteorites if they don't buy his paracells or whatever. It's like, oh man, he's even like, he'll be like, I'm gonna build you that wall, you need a wall, like his phrasing and everything. They're like, and they goes to the sheriff goes to the judge in town, and he's like, well, Trump hasn't given us a damn thing. In order to arrest somebody, you have to have a crime, and this Trump hasn't given us a single thing to go on. It's so over the top. But
oh my God. Oh man, I'm gonna watch this one through. That's crazy. Okay, and then earlier, Adam Krigler asked, "What are the greatest multiplayer games of all time? Not just video games, board games, sports, anything." It's for a project I'm working on, and I had to respond, "Let's play Thermonuclear War." I think that's the game that we're headed to. But all right, I love
since
you guys.
It's Pride Month, I would say smear the queer.
With what? Like
peanut butter?
Good.
Schmear. Oh, is it schmear? Which would be what?
Schmear. I didn't recognize your Yiddish. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Cream cheese, I assume.
All right, you Meshuggah. Noah has a new Patreon. You're going to go find it. We'll put the link up for you as soon as we can. I'm sorry I didn't end it right.